Uh, this is Sally Klein O'Connor, and you are watching Love Stories. And today I have a very dear friend and special guest, Rabbi Corey Sylvester of Temple Aviv, Judea. Thank you for coming, Corey.
It's always a pleasure. Always. We go back a ways.
We do. Yes. We go back a bit. And today I wanted to start off by sharing a passage in Ezekiel that actually talks about the origin of the Jewish people, the story between the Jewish people and God from the perspective of God. And he's the one telling the story through Ezekiel's voice, so to speak. So in Ezekiel 16, if you have your Bible, this is a little bit longer than usual, but I'm just going to share this because I think it will be a good place to start for us to have a little conversation about the Jewish people and anti-Semitism. This is what the sovereign Lord says to Jerusalem. Your ancestry and birth were in the land of the Canaanites. Your father was an Amorite and your mother a Hittite. On the day you were born, your cord was not cut, nor were you washed with water to make you clean, nor were you rubbed with salt or wrapped in cloths. No one looked on you with pity or had compassion enough to do any of these things for you. Rather, you were thrown out into the open field, for on the day you were born, you were despised. Then I passed by and saw you kicking about in your blood. And as you lay there in your blood, I said to you, live. I made you grow like a plant of the field. You grew and developed and entered puberty. Your breasts had formed and your hair had grown, yet you were stark naked. Later I passed by, and when I looked at you and saw that you were old enough for love, I spread the corner of my garment over you and covered your naked body. I gave you my solemn oath and entered into a covenant with you, declares the sovereign Lord, and you became mine. I bathed you with water and washed the blood from you and put ointments on you. I clothed you with an embroidered dress and put sandals of fine leather on you. I dressed you in fine linen and covered you with costly garments. I adorned you with jewelry. I put bracelets on your arms and a necklace around your neck. And I put a ring on your nose, earrings on your ears, and a beautiful crown on your head. So you were adorned with gold and silver. Your clothes were of fine linen and costly fabric and embroidered cloth. Your food was honey, olive oil, and the finest flour. You became very beautiful and rose to be a queen. And your fame spread among the nations on account of your beauty, because the splendor I had given you made your beauty perfect, declares the sovereign Lord. But you trusted in your beauty and used your fame to become a prostitute. You lavished your favors on anyone who passed by, and your beauty became his. You took some of your garments to make gaudy high places where you carried on your prostitution. You went to him and he possessed your beauty. You also took the fine jewelry I gave you, the jewelry made of my gold and silver. And you made for yourself male idols and engaged in prostitution with them. And you took your embroidered clothes to put on them, and you offered my oil and incense before them. Also the food I provided for you, the flour, olive oil, and honey I gave you to eat, you offered as a fragrant incense before them. This is what happened, declares the sovereign Lord. And you took your sons and daughters, whom you bore to me, and sacrificed them as food to the idols. Was your prostitution not enough? You slaughtered my children and sacrificed them to the idols. In all your detestable practices and your prostitution, you did not remember the days of your youth when you were naked and bare, kicking about in your blood. I don't know about you, Corey, but for me, it's a very sobering passage, because on one hand, God raised up a beautiful people, and we were despised. We were not wanted. And God called us to himself, and he clothed us and covered us and washed us and adorned us, and we forsook him. You know, and it's very sobering, you know, that story.
I love this story too. And I saw this as a love story between God and a people called Israel. And he had high hopes for them. But when he made his vows to his people, like in a marriage, they're forever. And no matter the ups and downs of the people, the tragedies, the prostitution, the harlotry, but God is going to renew that and restore that covenant that he has. He never breaks a covenant. And he loves his people. So he's going to, he raised this people up.
Yeah.
Made her like a queen,
Right.
a bride. And she soiled her clothes. But doesn't mean that God has forsaken them, and he is going to restore them. This is a promise. God cannot go beyond and break a promise, or break a covenant. He loves his people. They have made a lot of errors, and they have paid dearly for it. Paid dearly.
It's important, I think, to realize that we were in many respects no better than any other people. But it is God who made a choice to raise up a people for himself, even as an example of a love relationship between one people and himself, as the, I don't know, maybe kind of like the first fruits of his hope for the nations, to love all the nations in a relationship through his son, Jesus.
Yeah, it says that he came to the Jewish people. He chose them for two reasons. Not because there were many, but a few. But also because he loved the faith of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Right.
And total grace that was given to them. And everyone to follow, if they grasp onto that, to the Jewish people and the covenant, they become adopted. They become adopted. To say that he loves the nations, I will say this, that God loves one nation. He made a covenant with one nation, but he loves the people of the nations, but he wants them to join in that wonderful nation. But I mean, we may have
Okay.
Yeah.
I
I
understand. I'm not sure about the language, but I will say that I know that every human being that he's made in his image, he has love for, that he created.
Oh, yes. And he's waiting for them to respond.
Right. And respond to his...
That's right.
His gift through his son.
That's right.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about anti-Semitism. And Corey and I were talking just even a little bit in the car as we were trying to prepare for this, and just some of the experiences that we've had in terms of anti-Semitism in our lives. And I was going to share one thing. I was in Poland a few years ago doing a special project, a tour of roses, and at the end of my time of handing out the roses on the last day, I went into the souvenir store that everybody said was so great. It was like the best souvenir store. They had hand-carved wooden, gifts and things like that, very, very very Polish, as opposed to like more generic. And so I went in the store because it was right nearby, and I was in there with some Polish friends, and they were translating for me. But the first thing that caught my eye when I walked into the store were these wooden figures, and they were very beautifully done. But it was clear that they were done, in a certain way. They were all supposed to represent Jewish people. And I knew this because the nose was large on every figure, and there was a gold coin in every hand of all the figures. That's you tightening up. I know. So, and I got really upset. I was like really upset. I mean, there were really a lot of effort put into the carvings of, and this is not like 1940 or, 1960. This is 2014, and here I'm in this souvenir store that everybody thinks is great. And all I can see is this, and I'm going, what's wrong with this picture? Okay. So I thought very hard, because I'm in a place where I'm representing, reconciliation and healing. And I'm in this store with these, figures that are supposed to represent the Jewish people, all carved to perfection, mind you, and all with Jewish coins and large noses. And if it was a man, a yarmulke, and I'm like, do I say something or do I not say something? And I did say something, and I really felt like God helped me to express myself to the woman who was there, who is not the shop owner, but she explained to me, well, these are good luck. These figures are good luck. In other words, the coin in the hand is like prosperity. It was like, so you take a Jew home and put him on top of your mantelpiece, and maybe you will be prosperous. And I said, and God was so good to me. He helped me remember something from my childhood. My father used to tell dumb Polak jokes. And I explained to her, and I said, my father used to tell me these jokes, and it portrayed you and your people as just incredibly stupid. And I said, that wasn't right. That wasn't good. I said, that didn't help me understand you as a people or value you as a people when my father told those jokes. And this doesn't help our history together. This doesn't help heal all the history that we have together as peoples. This separates us because your perception of us is still this, a coin in the hand and a large nose. And I said, that's not my perception of you. You're not a dumb Polak. And anyway, I chose to buy from that store because I didn't want to punish her for it. I wanted to dialogue with her. And I felt that could help, and that's my heart in this discussion. I don't know what you think, but
yeah. Well, it's one thing about Sally, her heart is gold. But I just want to say, I'm from New York, Brooklyn, and I grew up mostly with Jewish people. I grew up, 80% of the public high school I went to were Jewish. So I don't think I had, we had, otherwise we had Catholic, and we had one Protestant, as I was told. And I heard that he was just a nominal. He wasn't born again.
Yeah.
So there is, but I wanted to say that in the 40s, on the East Coast, you can see signs at the beach. It said, no Jews, no dogs.
Wow.
You go further south, of course, it will say no blacks, no Jews, but it is very, this was very hurtful. Now, Jewish people, the professors, brilliant scholars, wanted to be teachers. They wanted to go to Harvard. They wanted to go to teach at Yale. They wanted to teach at Princeton. And you know what? They banned them from these Jewish people, these Jewish wonderful teachers, because they were Jewish.
In the 40s?
In the 40s.
I didn't know that.
Yes, and you know what happened? I benefited from that. Thank you very much. They all came down to New York City to teach at Brooklyn College, where I went. These are all free schools. Queens College, New York's, all the city colleges had the best teachers.
Wow.
Why? Because they weren't allowed to go to Princeton or Harvard because they were Jewish.
Wow.
That is an amazing story from that, but I benefited from it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I did.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
And I have had, my mother's in the 40s was really bad in New York. Also, my mother used to come out of Sunday Hebrew school and be attacked by the children from coming out of the Catholic schools, and they would be throwing chalk at her, all over her and whatever, and calling her very bad names. This was commonplace. This was common. So,
Yeah.
so she had, all of this, yes, it's all was built up, and they didn't know how. I wish they knew Yeshua, but
Right.
They had an outlet for God's grace and forgiveness, But it all got, and then all the Jews in Germany, the ones that came out, all pent up and scared of the Gentiles.
And also attributing it to Christ. The Holocaust.
Yeah, they were called Christ killers.
That's right. My father was.
Right.
My father was in Boston. And I remember when I started talking to him about Yeshua, about Jesus, he told me that when he was a boy, that he was called a Christ, he was called the Christ killers,
Right.
Christ killer. And I just thought,
But what does that mean, Christ killer?
it means that you're responsible for the death of Jesus, and that's not
only that. What they're saying is you're responsible for killing God. It's called deicide.
Right.
Very
Deicide.
important. Yes.
Interesting. Well, and we know that Jesus, Yeshua said, no one takes his life from him,
That's
but
right.
he lays it down of his own accord. So he has authority to lay it down and to pick it up again.
Mm-hmm.
But this is such a scheme of the devil. That's what Michael used to say. He said, this is a real scheme of the devil, because if anything could separate the Jews from the Messiah, the promised one to the Jews and to the world, is the idea that we're the ones responsible for killing him.
I want to say this. I know we want to see it on both sides and everything, but I just want to state right here that it is demonic. Anti-Semitism is demonic. It's from the devil. We have to, of course, we need to get to the point we have to separate it. People are let the spirit of the demons into them, but we have to realize it and rebuke it. I
think that's fair, because during Jesus's time on the earth, right, he makes it very clear that he and the disciples have come to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, and they first are coming to the people from whom Jesus' earthly lineage is, to speak to them, because he's the promise fulfilled. This is what Rabbi Corey and myself and many, many others and more Jewish people and Gentiles believe, that he is the promise fulfilled. He is Mashiach, the promised one, and so to then put on the Jewish people that they're the ones who killed him is to put as much distance as possible. I mean, the greatest distance between the Jewish people and the possibility of receiving the Messiah, the chosen one. Because now you've said, And it's Christians, Gentiles, who are saying, you killed our Christ. You killed, God's Son. You killed, the Holy One. And so that's probably the greatest lie. That's probably the greatest defamation,
Exactly.
or anti-Semitic statement, is to say, you killed him, okay? And when people say, who killed Christ, and I've had that come to me a couple of times, I say, I take Jesus's words above all the words that are said, because the Jews do say, it is recorded in the New Covenant that, let his blood be on us. But Jesus says, no one takes his life. He lays it down. This was his destination from the beginning. So not the Romans even, nor the Jews took him. He had the power. He told Pilate this, to call 10,000, angels or whatever, right?
That's right. And if it wasn't for him doing this, this was his purpose from the beginning of time, to come and to do this act for us, this act of love.
Incredible love.
To take our sins away. This was what he wanted. This is what the Father wanted. And he was just, his will be done. And it was. It was the greatest love.
It was the greatest love.
And those who love him, those who know him, who have been transformed, we also have the power to forgive and to heal and to love one another. This is very important.
And to love even when others don't love. And that is the most important thing. That is what we're trying to come to in this conversation, that when anti-Semitism raises its head, whether through ignorance or fear or hatred, obviously prejudice. I was saying this, it's like ignorance plus fear equals prejudice. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it, but I see ignorance. I saw ignorance in Poland. It's like, she, this is what she knew. This is what she grew up with in the shop. And so she saw nothing wrong with it. But it's like, well, we saw nothing wrong with my father's jokes. And that was not okay. You're a precious person in the sight of God, and to value you and not to demean you. And that's how we begin to love one another.
This is an interesting story. When we have a word for the Gentile. The Gentiles is called the Goyim.
Yeah.
The Goyim. And we say the Jewish people, it's not a nice word.
It's Yiddish, right? Isn't it?
No, it's
actually Hebrew.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they'll say the Goyim, and it's a face, the Goyim. It's like it's distasteful because of what they remember, what's happened in their life. They can't get past that. But the irony of this is, Goyim is plural. It means nations. But you know who the biggest Goy is? The biggest nation in God's book? The Jewish people. They're the great Goy. That's
interesting.
They're the great Goy. So God has a sense of humor, I would say.
You have to define that a little better. So doesn't it mean like dogs or something?
Goyim? No,
Yeah.
Goy. Well, they might have made it worse, but Goy means nation.
Okay.
Goyim is nations.
Yeah.
And that's
the littlest nation, almost the littlest nation, is a big. Yeah.
But the ones that the Jewish people calling the Goyim, and it's derogatory. It's really, they are the greatest Goy, the greatest nation.
Okay.
That's how I see it.
All right. That's. Well, you and I were talking a little bit about Martin Luther, and we're almost out of time because that's how it always goes.
Well, I was thinking, we're going to talk about that in the next one, but I was thinking about one of my experiences recently about this man that was trying to sell us something, and it was financially, and he said he started to talk about things that are going on and in the world, and then all of a sudden he started to talk about it was anti-Jewish, anti-Zion, and I'm saying, where are you getting this information from? He didn't know that I was a rabbi here. So he said, oh, well, don't worry, I'm Jewish. And I said, that doesn't make it any better. You know, why are you saying these things? And it's not true. God loved his first people. But he went on, but he got the message. But anyway, that was to me a very, and this was a Jewish person.
Disconcerting.
Yeah, my father used to say the worst anti-Semites are the Jewish people.
We hate ourselves.
That's right. there is a self-loathing.
Yeah, we're not. I think a lot of times some of the lies, that I was looking up, some of the things that are thought or spoken about Jewish people. That is the idea that they have too much power, or they think they're better than everybody else, or they're going to take over the world, or they're just a difficult people. And it's like, really, there's a whole internal thing going on with every human being, no matter what their culture or what their race, and for Jewish people.
It does say that in
God
the top.
called us stiff-necked, okay. But, we're not the only stiff-necked people there are.
Exactly.
There's a lot of ethnicities that are very stiff-necked,
Exactly.
But the point is that, within ourselves, our own humanity as people and the struggle with sin, we're not a perfect people. That's why I wanted to read that love story, as Corey calls it, because he loves us even though we are not a perfect people, even though we blew it again and again and again and again. So I think that's an important perspective, because so many people have a distorted view of what Jewish people are and where they are with God. And we're going to continue to explore this in the next episode, should I say.
Yes.
But for now, I just really thank you for joining us and spending a little time with me and Corey. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. This is Sally Klein O'Connor with my good friend Corey Sylvester, and you've been watching Love Stories. Till next time.